comes to Giants' latest, we have a little more Joe Schoen news that we have to talk about today. So we're going to get into that with a couple other things. And then tomorrow and later this week, we are going to talk about Brian Daboll because he spoke to the media during the owners' meetings. And then we're going to recap the owners' meetings and talk about some of the rule changes that have been made in the NFL, which I think are interesting. All right, let's get right into Joe Schoen because he said that Evan Neal is open to moving to guard. And the only thing I have to say about that is I don't give a crap what Evan Neal is open to. He's been with us for 3 years, and for all 3 of those years, he has been god-awful at tackle. He has experience playing guard. Why wouldn't you move him sooner? I don't know what took them so long. They probably have reasons upon reasons of why they waited this long to do it. I don't care what they are. All I have to say is thank God you're finally moving him to guard. Evan Neal has been a decent run blocker, okay? That has not really been his problem. His problem is at the tackle position when he's out in space and has virtually no help around him because he can't survive one-on-one. You know what moving to guard is going to do? Help that. Especially having Jermaine Illuminor on the right side. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But the fact that Joe Schoen said that Evan Neal is open to moving to guard, listen, man, you are the GM, okay? You run the show. 3 years of garbage football, it shouldn't have taken you this long to say, listen, buddy, you're moving to guard, okay? You have experience there. These are all the reasons why we're doing it. This should have been done at least a year ago. I'm glad it's finally happening now, but like I said, you are the GM, okay? You're not negotiating with a toddler, okay? You say you're moving to guard, end of story. You have experience there. I'm not trying to force you into center, a position you've never played before. Anyway, I am very glad that was part of the conversation, and I am glad that Joe Schoen mentioned that because I think that's the best case scenario for Evan Neal. Now, let's talk about the quarterback position because he did talk about this, and I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I want to get into what he said specifically about Russ Wilson because we didn't cover off on this. So he did say that Russ Wilson is going to get the first team reps, but I don't really think is a surprise to anyone based on his contract and the fact that they signed Jameis to such a smaller deal. And, it always seemed like if they were going to bring in Russ Wilson, there was no question that he was going to be the starter. Now, I'm fine with that. I still would like to see a competition in training camp. I really would like to see the two of them battle it out. I would like to see both of them with Malik Neighbors and Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson and Theo Johnson. I want to see the different quarterbacks really get involved with our top wide receiver and see how it goes. Ultimately, I think that Russ Wilson probably would beat out Jameis Winston for the starting role anyway, so I don't really think that it would matter. Just from a fan perspective, let's make it interesting, right? Give me something a little bit more exciting to look forward to when it comes to all the training camp practices this summer. So I would like that. The other thing that he said about Russ Wilson, which again, we didn't talk about yesterday, is the fact that when Russ came into the building on Friday, they offered him a contract right away. The reason why it took so long was because they were negotiating. And I have to say that I give Joe Schoen a lot of credit when it comes to this contract because we have all given him a lot of garbage for the contracts that he has made, Daniel Jones being the biggest one, letting guys walk out the building, not getting anything in return. And like I have said previously, I unfortunately think it's taken a little too long, but I think Joe Schoen has kind of figured out, how to be a better GM. I just wish it would happen sooner, but it is what it is at this point. Lucky for him, he got to stay another year and prove himself. But I really like that he went from giving Daniel Jones $40 million a year, which again, no one loved that, okay? The point that I'm trying to make is that we were paying a starting quarterback $40 million a year. Now we're paying a starting quarterback $10.5 million a year. And yes, there's another 10.5 that is focused on incentives, but this is what I love, is give the quarterbacks a competition. So it gives Russ Wilson, who I already think is internally motivated. I don't think he needs any external motivation. And I don't think he needs the motivation of incentives to say, I'm going to work my butt off to get the starting role, but I'd like to see that, right? Let's kind of force it a little bit, make him work for those incentives. So, but anyway, the point that I'm saying is I really like that Joe Schoen seems to really have learned, and to go from the Daniel Jones contract to now 2025 Giants, okay, you've got a starting quarterback and the backup quarterback who are making a total of $14 million guaranteed, which is what Daniel Jones is making for 1 year with the Colts. So we're learning, okay? They're learning, they're growing, changes are being made. I like it. And I do like the fact that it sounds like they were not sitting around waiting for Aaron Rodgers because they offered Russ Wilson a contract the second he walked in the door. So makes me feel a little bit better, again, that maybe this front office does not have their heads in their butts and have no idea what they're doing. So maybe they really have learned. And I am mostly just happy that Aaron Rodgers is not a Giant and that it sounds like he never was going to be a Giant. Would have appreciated the 2 weeks of stress that they forced upon us with the Aaron Rodgers thing, but it's fine. He's going to go to Pittsburgh. He's not even in our division and we don't have to worry about it. So some other moves that they have made. Let's talk about Ty Summers because the Giants re-signed him. He's a linebacker, has experience on special teams, and with the Giants, he played with the team in 2024. And the one thing that I want to point out about this is we're going to talk about this later in the week, like I said, when we get into some of the NFL rule changes. But you'll notice that this offseason for the Giants, they have focused a lot on special teams. And special teams has not been very good for this team for a long time. And it sounds like they're finally making some good adjustments there. But I like that they're focusing specifically on the linebacker position. So Ty Summers is 6'1", 241 pounds. He's played in 83 games between the Packers, Jags, and Saints, and he was a 7th-round draft pick. His career totals include 89 tackles, 55 solo, 1 tackle for loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 passes defensed. So he played 16 games with the Giants last year. He only had 2 starts out of the 16. But he finished the season with 29 tackles, 13 solo, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defense while playing primarily on special teams. So I think, excuse me, this is a fine signing. Like I said, these low-level signings when it comes to depth, I think are so important for this football team. And I think that bringing back a guy who got some decent playing time last year and did okay at it, it's just fine. It's likely a veteran minimum, a 1-year deal, and let's see what he can do. Special teams is going to need a lot of help this year, so the more the merrier, especially when it comes to a linebacker specifically and tackling. So with that being said, let's move right along here to Jameis Winston because he had his introductory press conference with the Giants, and you know, I am excited about Jameis Winston for a lot of reasons, but one of the videos that I saw just made me laugh a little bit. And God bless him. He thinks he's going to bring some wins to this team, which I hope he does. I hope he does. But if he continues to throw the amount of interceptions that he throws, we're probably not looking at a lot of wins. We're looking at a lot of points, which, would also be nice. But I just love that he said he made this selfie introductory video to Giants fans where he's like, we're going to bring the wins and we're going to bring the giggles and I'm here to have some fun. And I was just like, you know what, Jameis, this is what I want. As a fan, I want some giggles because there's been a lot of tears and a lot of frustration and anger over the last couple of years. Let's have some fun, okay? Let's go to football games. And you know what? If we walk out with a loss, maybe we put up 40 points, okay? Maybe we've got some touchdowns. Maybe Malik Neighbors is really going to have 2,000 yards this year. You know what? And at this point, this is what I care about. Let's just have a little bit of fun. If we're going to lose, make it fun. But anyway, I love that Jameis was very excited to be a Giant. He said that, he really sat down and weighed his different options. And I'm not really sure what those options were, but it sounds like he did have a couple options and ultimately decided that New York was going to be the best option for him. He said that it was presented to him that he probably wouldn't be the starter, but he would be getting some playing time. And knowing the Giants with all of the injuries that they have had when it comes to quarterbacks specifically, is that, yes, we will probably see Jameis Winston at some point this year. He talked about he has a history with Brian Daboll and he loved what he did, especially with the play calling back in New England. He loved that he's won Super Bowls as an assistant coach. So him, like Russ Wilson, talked a lot about Brian Daboll. And I got to say, they are brainwashing me into thinking that maybe Brian Daboll is a better coach than I think he is. Time will tell on that one. But they spoke very highly of him, and Jameis Winston basically reiterated what Russ Wilson said, is that Brian Daboll has a very great offensive mind. He's got good players in the building. He talked about the offensive line and the fact that he feels like the team is in a good place and he likes what they've done. And, basically he just said that he's excited to be here and he feels like where he's at in his career, New York was a great place, and he liked that he has a multi-year deal. So, he's going to have the opportunity to kind of prove himself and see what he can do. But I basically just got the vibe that him, like Russ, they're very excited to be in New York, has a lot of respect for Brian Daboll, likes the weapons and the talent that are on this team, and feels like he can bring this team some wins. God bless him. I hope he can too. But I'm excited to see him be a Giant. Let's see what he can do. At the very least, we're going to be laughing along with Jameis and his one-liners. So we have that to look forward to. Stay tuned. More Giants content coming this week.